Hello everyone. Thank you all for joining us. I'm Neil, your host for the webinar today. We will shortly start the webinar on analytics for planning, scheduling, and work management. Before we start, I would like to introduce you to the presenter, Mr. Sunil Kamerkar. Sunil is the principal consultant at AssetAnalytix, a consulting company that assists organizations in utilizing the CMMS data effectively with the help of advanced data analysis and reporting services. AssetAnalytix has worked with large manufacturing, life sciences, utilities, and oil and gas companies to help them take informed business decisions related to reliability and maintenance. Without taking much time, I now hand over to Sunil to deliver the webinar and request all participants to post their queries on the chat window. We will answer your queries at the end of the session. Hope the webinar will be worth your while. Thank you.
Hey, thank you, Neil. This is Sunil. We'll be today talking about analytics or how analysis can help planning, scheduling, and work management in general. So we'll be covering the challenges that we all have in the work management, the data quality issues for analysis purposes, the challenges for planners and schedulers, and then some of the analysis and KPI examples we will share what other world-class companies are using. So before I begin, let me ask you a first polling question, which is what CMMS or EAM are you currently using?
Your options are SAP, Maximo, Oracle, DataStream, others. Thank you so much for answering. Well, the poll suggests that it is 16% for SAP, 44% for Maximo, 4% for DataStream, 15% for Oracle, and 19% for other.
Okay, so we have a mix of CMMS and EAM system here. So I also have, I think, another polling question.
What CMMS? Which version of Maximo do you currently use? Your options are 4x, 5x, 6x, or 7x. The results suggest that we have 69% for 7x, 15% for 6x, 8% for 5x, and 8% for 4x.
Okay, thank you all. So before, there is a lot of impact of work management on the overall financial and operational performance of the organization. So if we broadly categorize how work management, maintenance, and reliability related work management, how it impacts the organization. So obviously first and the foremost is the throughput or the productivity. The financials impact, whether it's on the top line or the bottom line of the organization. And then all the risk associated with compliance or environmental health, safety, or any other compliance risk it may impact. And generally how whatever the productivity is, what is the quality of the production that you are doing. And the last is, of course, the organization overall preparedness and maturity. So we have seen different organizations are at different levels and the impact could be different, but all the work that we do is in general will have some sort of impact on the top line or the bottom line of the organization, the risk involved. So these are the broad categories. Some of these elements are from OEE, some of them are related to some other areas. So there is in general, from a work management perspective, there is a lot of waste that is identified in the maintenance activities. So the first and the foremost is, of course, labor productivity. A lot of times people have to wait for instruction, looking for some additional help, checking out jobs, or waiting for approval, various things that really impact on the labor productivity. Also, there is a lot of impact on the stores and the material side. So whatever we all do from a work management perspective, it has a direct impact not only on the broad high-level organization level, but even at the department or at the site level, there will be impact on these factors. So there is a lot of things we have been identified over the years, and maintenance and the planning and scheduling can help reduce this type of waste. Some other example from the overall the planned activity versus unplanned activity. Activities which are not planned they are done on an ad hoc basis. There is a lot of waste in the overall performance or the workflow of the organizations. So there is also another surveys which have been done, and it was observed that only 30% productive work gets done if you don't have a controlled maintenance activity, or if you don't have a planned or scheduled maintenance activity. And maybe 50%, it can be improved up to 50%, and some organization can go up to 60% on the actual throughput of the maintenance people that are involved. So planning and scheduling can assist you in almost doubling the productivity of the workforce that you may have. So generally, in all the organization, there are various ways the planning and the work management is actually managed, which is somebody will identify all the work which is related to PM or CM or EM, whatever might be the work that you all include in the whole maintenance and reliability activities. It needs to be identified. Somebody has to plan it. For example, getting all the material lined up, all the third party. If you are going to engage third party, then you need those type of resources or tools, special tools. And then all that work is then scheduled, and then of course the last part is actually executing that work. And once the work is finished, you need to follow through and complete all those work orders, and then of course in the end you will do analysis and maybe look at certain KPIs. So this is in general these are the steps we all follow. Different organizations will have different internal processes, but these are the by and large overall structure of the process that generally people follow. So let's look at it at each one of these stages, what kind of reports and what kind of analysis can help manage these things effectively. The other general challenges in work management is, of course, understanding the overall work. What is the backlog? What is the future work? Understanding the trend. Here, is backlog increasing? Is the future work new additions to the site or new additions of equipment? Is it going to add more work, or different types of equipment is added in the plant or in the facilities? How it will impact the overall work? So it is important to understand the trends and what the current volume of the work is. Then obviously based on maintenance and reliability goals, you may focus on various, you may prioritize your work and focus on different aspects. So you might have high priority work or that needs to be get done, or if it is compliance related work, it has to be done. So some of those things you will have to identify. And then you probably have to look at the resources which are available to you. Again, it could be internal resources, it could be external resources, external agencies. However the organization is managing this work, you need to understand all these different aspects of the resources. Obviously, everybody is interested in increasing the wrench time and then increasing the productivity, reducing the productivity losses, identify the process bottlenecks within your work management process, and then ideally, if you are a multi-site, multi-location type of organization, you would like to benchmark within your peers and within your own organization and understand what best practices you can learn from other groups and then implement in your own location. And then obviously you want to know some exceptions on the work that is being performed, so you can accordingly adjust if it's a training need or it's some other management issues that you need to work on. Some of the questions every planner and scheduler again have to answer, and really reports and analysis is really more to help with these questions. What has to be done? How many skilled resources will we need? What is their status? Who is at work? All the who is sick, who is on leave, vacation, various things that you may have to take into account. Who is how many shifts should you have, or overtime you might need, and there are different skills level within the organization, different craft, the levels are different, and accordingly you may have to plan based on the job's severity and the priority. You may require different resources. Some tasks would be very special and require some special resources in terms of maybe tools, third party, or your internal resources, supervision, whatever might be the case. So there are a lot of these variables, and in some organizations like utilities, the work can be also geographically spread out, so that's another variable to consider. And then of course the big thing is, do we have all the spares that are required for completing the work or completing the job? What are the safety and related job plans? Which activities should be done first and which should be done? So a lot of these things are handled in the job plans, but as a maintenance and scheduler, it is very important for them to get understanding of the sequence of activities that needs to be done. And then if you are in a manufacturing type of setup, you will have to collaborate with your production peers and get the time on the specific equipment. Many a times, so the planning, scheduling have to be so good that it has to coincide with the production plans that your organization may have. So there's a lot of variables, and as the volume of work increases and these variables increase, it can get very, very complex for planners and schedulers to plan and schedule the job. So before I move forward, I have the third polling question.
Are you using any external planning and scheduling software tool outside of CMMS? Please select anyone, whether yes or no. The results are 67% no and 35% yes.
All right. Really, this before I move on to the further, I have another question that is also relevant to this particular topic.
Rate quality and integrity of your CMMS data in terms of accuracy, consistency, and completeness. Select any one of the options. The results are 6% very poor, 19% poor, 66% good, 9% very good.
Okay. So majority of you will have good data, but both these questions where if you have a special software, obviously these are the tools for planners and schedulers, and if you have good data related to all the job plan, historic trends of the time that is required for each task, for each craft, the level of craft that is required, all these things will obviously help the planners and schedulers. So majority of looks like have good data, but these data quality issues are very, very important in terms of planning and scheduler for your effectiveness in the planning and scheduling process. A lot of times, even in the CMMS, people have a lot of open work orders for, or they have missing sometimes. In most recent CMMS, of course, work type is a mandatory field, but many times in the past, the work type was not correctly defined, or the priorities were not correctly defined. A lot of times there are too many blanket work orders, several thousand work orders where it's in progress. So for whatever reasons, the work order is stuck. It is still in the system, and sometimes some historic data is imported, and they just in progress is there for a long time. For whatever reason, the work orders were not closed. Also, in many cases, for the past work orders, the actual hours are not entered for various reasons. So many times the priorities are not correctly defined, or reported by certain fields are these days in most softwares and SAP, Maximo, DataStream, or Oracle, it is automatically recorded, but sometimes it is not correctly changed, or for whatever reasons. So all these data really doesn't help the planning and scheduling process. They can't rely on the data that is presented to them. So it's very important that job plans are correctly defined, the safety plans are correctly defined, all the related documentation that may be required to complete a job has to be part of this data quality initiative. And all this really is what is going to be helpful in analyzing and reporting and creating KPIs, etc. So many organizations we have seen struggle with data quality issues, and companies who have spent time in improving that has usually improved the planning and scheduling by almost 40 to 50%. So there is a upfront investment on getting right data, but once the data is there, then obviously you have to use that data to analyze and make informed decisions. Some other things we have seen is too many work orders are tied to the highest level of location hierarchy. So if you have a location hierarchy within the CMMS, then it is good to get to the actual location rather than at a very high level. So you may have a department and that you assigned it as a location or an area, and then all the work orders are assigned to that. That may not be the best practice. Also, the work types need to be further refined. Very broad level work type sometimes will not help, like PDM is a work type. But you may like to do further delineation related to oil routes or lube routes, or you may have some other inspection activities, etc., which needs to be further refined. The work types can be further refined to get accuracy in terms of what type of work is being performed. Then description, of course, and this is the last part is very important, where we start entering actual hours, the material used, the failure code, the problem code, because all this will allow the planners, schedulers to redefine the standard job plans that are part of the standard operating procedures, because they may be set up at a long time, 3 years, 4 years ago, and they may have changed. The actual time may change. So all these things will allow the planners and schedulers to do a better judgment on the way they will perform their job. Before I move on, I have another polling question.
Which reporting tool do you currently use? Your options are Actuate, BERT, Crystal, Cognos, Other. The results are, it's 6% Actuate, 20% for BERT, 14% for Crystal, 6% for Cognos, and 54% for Other.
In many organizations, we have seen a lot of people use spreadsheet to really manage the work for various reasons. Or if the planning scheduling software is being used, then probably there is some other analysis tool. The reason it's important is how you can actually get access to this data and how you can actually use this data to make informed decisions. So the tools are, most of the tools can allow you to do what you need to do, but the flexibility is very important, and access to that data is very important. These are the general planning scheduling principles we have seen, and this is by Doc Palmer, who wrote a handbook on planning scheduling. But generally, these are the best practices, where you separate the planning from focus on the scheduling and planning should be a separate activity. Focus on the future work. Maintain component level files, so you have a lot of details for planners to use. Estimate based on planners' experience and historic data. So this historic data, if it is not recorded correctly, it would not be very helpful. So it's important that you create this historic data by entering the right information about material, the hours used, all of those things, which will allow the planners to do a better job. The skills level of the crafts, that's also a challenging aspect. How do you record it? How do you maintain it? And if you do it right, it would really help the planning and scheduling process. And then, on a regular basis, you got to measure the performance and then understand what the shortcomings are and what are the areas of improvement are. So these are really very high level principles. The KPIs we have seen use in many cases, or analysis example, just to understand the work volume, number of work orders generated per week. These are just to get a sense of what's the volume are we talking here. How many number of work orders planned per week, number of work orders scheduled per week. So you kind of get a sense of, are we talking 500 work orders? Are we talking 5,000 work orders across the organization, across the department, across the site? Various ways you can actually look at these things. The work order growth. And here the work order may not give you the real picture, because if you have hours associated with it, then instead of number of work orders, you could do hours. And in some cases, it's not going to be easy to estimate, so you need probably both. You need the number of work orders, and you also need hours per week that needs to be, the work needs to be done. So in many cases, work order is a loose indication, but if you have actual hours, it would give you a good sense of volume of the work and the different crafts that are required, different levels of craft that is required. You can also do backlog, number of total work orders trends, so you can see whether the open work orders are increasing, the backlog is increasing, the closing rate. So these are some of the examples, and then there could be variation of these. Of course, this is not the total all the KPIs, but this kind of give you a sense of it, and I'll share some of the actual analysis itself. Then once you have this, there could be other planning and scheduling. I have more detailed planning scheduling KPIs, but if you are looking at just schedule compliance, how many work orders were completed as per plan, as per the schedule, completed versus scheduled, hours completed, and actual hours used. So those are the details you can actually look at. So as you go further, so some of these KPIs are, if you're a little bit more sophisticated in gathering the data and how the organization is actually operating, some of these KPIs will be important. So you will progress towards that. In the beginning, you may look at only broad level, and as you mature, you will look at some of these other aspects also. Percentage planned work, it is always, it is established that planned work is generally cheaper by almost 30% compared to unplanned work. And in terms of maintenance wastage, that labor productivity wastage that you may have. You may also like to look at the planner's efficiency or the effectiveness of planning and scheduling itself, and that in itself can be a good KPI to measure. And so there could be various ways within the planning and scheduling function itself you can have different sort of KPIs. There could be other related metrics also, and you could also figure out other reports that will go with the planning and scheduling process. When we say here KPIs, it is always in tandem with analysis itself. So you may have all the work orders that are being done by the third party or internal. You may do different analysis based on how your overall work is being managed, and this will allow you to get a sense of how overall work management planning process is working for you. So there is always, we all have workflows and processes well defined in many organizations. And as part of continuous improvement process, there could be other KPIs or there could be other analysis that you could do in terms of, as you become a little bit more sophisticated, you can always look at what is your average response time to work order, depending on the work type, depending on the priority, depending on whatever your criteria might be. And those are the, as you become a little more sophisticated, maybe you will look at those types of KPIs. Percentage of service request new status for more than 5 days. This is a request for if you have a policy of treating all the work orders needs to be responded in certain time frame, then maybe you can come up with a KPI like this. So these are just examples, but you got to look at it from your practical aspect, what is relevant in your situation and what can be realistically done. And in most cases, we have seen incremental changes really work very well, where people start with some basic KPIs. Maybe data is not accurate to begin with, but they start the process. It may give you wrong information at the beginning, but then you encourage people to enter the right information and then start using that as part of your day-to-day decision-making process. So some of these things may sound a little bit far-fetched, but depending on where you are in your maturity curve, you may be able to utilize some of these. And we have seen a lot of, as part of even Six Sigma process improvement, you could use some of these variations also. Further, some other examples of very specific work planning related KPIs. So you may, if you have a separate group doing planning part versus separate group who is doing scheduling, and they work together, then you can actually measure their effectiveness also, and then look at all these different aspects of analysis. The other thing we have seen is many a times it's good to do exception reporting, which allows you to identify certain areas which require attention, or some exceptions which should be paid attention to. So you want percentage of work orders not completed in 10% of planned hours. So now this, instead of 10%, you might look at 20%, depending on your culture and the overall accuracy of your job plans. You can look at different ways you can find the exceptions, and you can vary these limits as you become more better at judging the hours. You may look at 10%, but in the beginning you might start with 25%, 20%, and then maybe reduce that variation percentage. So these exceptions will allow you to actually improve your data quality, and that in turn will help you get more work done from all the resources that you are deploying to get this work done. Some other scheduling, other examples. Again, if you separate planning and scheduling, then you can actually look at some scheduling related analysis and KPIs and see how well the schedulers are doing their job, and in the process are they helping the organization reduce or increase the overall productivity of the maintenance team. And in that there could be various details, how much work is done without scheduling. So you may have emergency work which is many a times takes a higher priority than other work. So in that case it may be unscheduled work. But even on the other corrective work which is not emergency work can be also scheduled, and it may have a higher priority, but it can be scheduled, and it can also planned. So there are many ways you can analyze your scheduling activity and look at the actual operational efficiency also. It's one thing about scheduling, planning, people sitting in the different areas are helping, but coordinating closely with the shop floor. But then you can actually analyze how it is actually getting executed. In that case, one can find the areas to improve and communicate, whether it's in the form of communication between the department, between the stores or the supervisors or whoever is involved. So there's these things will allow you to create a system and analysis by which you can start engaging all the parties involved in a much better way. So let's look at some examples. So here I'm going to show some of the examples that we prepared for some other customers. And this is just an interface. This is not a software. This is not AssetAnalytix is a library of reports and content, but this is not a software. So whatever I'm showing you, this is just as an example. It was built in various tools. It could be BERT, Actuate, Crystal, Cognos, Microsoft Reporting Services, whatever, or Oracle, OBI. So any tool that you may have, but these examples are just to get a sense of what kind of content planning and scheduling team can use to manage their day-to-day work. So this is really showing you all the work orders currently in the system So in this case they have only 4, or in the other they included all the other work types. But so there is a plan. There's a PM activities which could also include all PDM, mostly proactive work, emergency work, and some other work. But the idea here is, and here just for simplicity, in this case it was grouped. Various work order statuses were grouped in this fashion, where you have open work orders and works to be scheduled, currently in progress, in planning, completed. All this is kind of more interactive. So if you slice it by at a site level, you can do this kind of analysis, or you can actually do it at a department level, or even at a supervisor level. So depending on how you are set up, you can look at what kind of work types you have, and what type of where they are in their status. We can also look at some aging type of analysis. Here it is just showing how many work orders are backlog and what their aging is. So this is between, and by craft, as in this example, where 60 to 90 days, this is by craft. Different crafts are listed, and this much work orders are still pending. Or you could go into something like less than 30 days. So this is fairly recent work. So these are some of the ways people can interact. This is an interesting report developed this is actually series of reports combined and worked with various experts to build this analysis. So what it is really showing you in the first section of the report is there are different sites, there are different types. Here you can actually again get a sense of how much work is there and what different statuses the work order is going through. And you can actually monitor the performance itself. If you have a lot of contractors doing the work, you can actually look at, again, depending on whosoever is the contractor, you can actually analyze it based on that, and then of course all the cost associated with it. In some companies, it's important that all the work orders which is on the production, which has direct impact on production, you want to see whether the work is getting done. Safety is another example where you would like to see the work is done on time and it's done at a higher priority, the safety related work orders. Same thing, you want to monitor your labor hours. So who is getting higher regular hours versus overtime. So for whatever reason, some people are given more overtime than the others, so you can actually monitor at that level also. Even you can do it at a craft level. So this will help you adjust your resources, and in turn it will help you in your planning and scheduling process. So the other areas to look at is scheduled hours versus available hours. So there could be another presentation like this also, where you may color code the whole calendar and kind of show it like that. So the colors may differ, but this can be done at a department level, at an individual level, the craft and labor, and then this will allow the planners to actually look at the overall process. And efficiently they can manage it. Sometimes the PM, as far as future work is concerned, many a times it's important to do the PM planning well in advance. So some companies have 6 months, 12 months, or 36 months, depending on the type of organization, but the work orders are generated, or it's in the PM master work orders. So in this case, you can actually come up with certain KPIs which will allow you to actually monitor your statuses of all your PM activities. And here it is, it may be, I'll just expand it a little bit. It is showing you by location all the PM, the job plan, who was the lead on it, the planned hours versus actual hours. And you can actually, so this kind of analysis will allow you to see if certain PMs were skipped or it was delayed or it was done on time. So, and then of course this will also help you adjust the hours associated with each PM type also. And this has also a direct impact on overall your planning efficiency and scheduling efficiency. Let's look at another example where here in this example it was done at an equipment level. You can also do it at a location level where so both just equipment or location or both you could do, where it was the green portion here, it is showing you last 6 months what the performance was on all the PM schedule versus the next 6 months. So this will allow you to see how much, so the red indicates that that particular PM was skipped. So here they have monthly, quarterly, and half yearly, semi-annual, however you say it, or annual work orders, and they are trying to monitor how they are performing. Another example could be, this is a little bit boring looking report, but it is also showing a similar example from a future. So you can take a certain date, time, and for the user group or owner group who is responsible for those type of equipments, you can actually look at that as well. Let's look at some daily schedules. If you are, some companies have daily schedule, it's very difficult, but we have seen some daily, or sometimes they will do it for 7 days, and then in the morning they will print for that particular day also. This is a maintenance weekly schedule. So different ways you can actually do, but some of these reports can help make sure that everybody is communicating about the work. This is another example where it's a weekly schedule. This is a static schedule where no matter what, this work has to be done. So this kind of helps in figuring out how much extra available hours are there for other activities or other non-static schedules. So depending on how you are set up, you can actually use some of this information. Then of course we have seen the crafts utilization. You would like to, once this is done correctly, you can go back and historically analyze how your craft you were able to use from a scheduling perspective, and then you can actually look at the individual level as well. The idea here is to understand whether somebody is getting, like in this example, somebody is getting a lot more work hours versus some of these other people in the bottom of this particular example. So for the same craft, different people have different levels of work. So either it could be a training issue, or it could be some supervisor preference, whatever might be the things that you can actually look at it. From a schedule compliance perspective, if you have, let's say in this example, you have different departments and different types of PMs, you can, how many were scheduled and how many were finished. So here 93% were finished on time or were in that scheduled period, whereas in this next example it's only 48% were completed in time. So there could be an area of improvement, so they may not be following certain, or they may not have recorded all the work, or the work gets finished but it is not recorded on time. So there could be different reasons, but you could actually monitor such type of KPIs and then encourage people to enter this type of information. Then there is some simple reports like this, projected PM for next 30 weeks. So this, you could do it at a specific equipment level, and you can post it at the equipment itself, so they know that if somebody is doing some other work, they know that they can do certain opportunistic PM work also, and that can save time. The way the SMRP defines certain KPIs, and we actually took it and further refined it depending on how the organizations, and this was done for certain organizations where they wanted to benchmark it, certain assumptions have to be made, what is included, what is not included, that type of thing. And then this certain KPIs you can actually standardize within the organization, and then kind of make sure that the definitions are universal. So there is some amount of work that needs to be done internally or by external company like ours, but this will help you see how your certain KPIs that you think are important that you want to follow, you could actually standardize on that. So there is some amount of detailing work that needs to be done, which will allow you to standardize these type of KPIs. Neil, I am actually close to 1 hour mark, so are there any questions?
I do have a question which has come up. If I work with Oracle, how do I do this reports?
All of these reports, see, Oracle also has a good tool from Oracle OBI or whatever the tool that currently the particular organization is using. This similar content can be presented in whatever tool that one is using, because most of those things that I showed you today, it's really the tool is not that important. The more important is whether we are capturing that type of data elements to report on. So in Oracle also one can do it.
As we're running out of time, we will try and answer those questions later.
All right. Thank you very much for attending this webinar. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.